Sheetz is going to do for me.
Bruce Mitchell, Pro Wrestling Torch, back at the Sheetz on Spring Garden Street. A lot to talk about these days. Maybe just sit back and say, let's rest, relax, and this is kind of a good escape for us. So you've got your busy teaching schedule now. I'm trying to get ready for all these ball games, all these orders at Sheetz, make sure you get all those filled.
Yeah, I've never heard that. Going in and out of this place all the time, I've never heard them do that before.
We'll go, Bruce. Pro Wrestling Torch is busy. Let's just go right into it. Let's dive in the beginning here. What about the death of Harley Race, the life and times of Harley Race?
Harley Race was a big person for Greensboro sports. I mean, he was the world heavyweight champion for the NWA when that was the biggest organization. He was the guy that Ric Flair chased, that Ricky Steamboat chased, that Paul Jones and Blackjack Mulligan chased for the NWA title. And he throws back to a type of professional wrestler that everybody wanted to know, believed was tough, and wanted to know how tough he was, and carried that with him wherever he went, with great promos, with matches, and he was very serious about what he did, and had an effect over the business for many, many years.
He even gave Andre the Giant some good matches, didn't he? Against Andre.
Yeah, as we're saying, I don't know how many times he did it, but well before Hulk Hogan did it at WrestleMania 3, and there were a lot of wrestlers that did this, but there were some, and he body slammed Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant liked him. Most people did. Most people respected him and were willing to work with him. And Andre definitely, if Andre was willing to work with you, he would let you body slam him. So that was a thing for Harley. Harley went all over the world. A lot of his best stuff is still preserved on tape. If you go up on YouTube and type in Harley Race, you can find All Japan matches and Georgia Championship Wrestling matches and all kinds of matches.
Yeah, I read a little bit of stuff about him on the website the day he died. It said a true champion's champion, a real true champion he was back in the day. It was like this guy was a serious business wrestler, what he was all about. I read some Bill Apter stuff, and Apter had that nice Apter magazine cover of Harley that's kind of known, I guess, over the years, really stands out. But some interesting things said about him after he passed away, and a lot of people really were dear to Harley Race.
Yeah, I think he symbolized an era of professional wrestling. Like I said, when people had their doubts about a lot of things that they saw, but they didn't doubt that Harley was one tough bastard, in the ring and out of the ring. And he was the one that if there was trouble where the wrestlers were, he was the one who would solve the problem. He didn't look for it himself, but he was legendary for being able to throw a right hand, punch out the punch. Somebody I told the story.
If you saw us with his bar fights, he just take 3 or 4 guys out just like that.
I told the story on PW Torch of him around in this area in the Mid-Atlantic. The wrestlers went to a bar outside of Raleigh, and Tiger Conway Jr., who was a young wrestler then, African-American wrestler in the 70s, and had, in a bar that was a little volatile, and so he went to the bathroom, and some rednecks got him, cut him off from the rest, and were going to really take him. And he was a tough guy too, but it was too many. And Harley Race looked around, saw that, got an idea of something was going on, walked back into the bathroom, and the only people that got taken care of were the rednecks. So there was Harley Race, the manager of Vader, against Ric Flair. Ric Flair, of course, here in the Greensboro Coliseum, won his second NWA and most important NWA World Heavyweight title at Starrcade with Harley Race. And Harley Race had a lot of money on the table from Vince McMahon to no-show Starrcade here that Thanksgiving in 1983 and show up in Madison Square Garden and face and lose to Hulk Hogan, and he in the end said no. But yeah, a guy that smoked his cigarettes, drank his beer, and his other alcoholic beverages, and went balls to the wall. It was always good to see him around.
Who's his closest friend or friends in the business? Some of his closest friends.
Well, you'd have to talk about Larry Hennig, Kurt Hennig's father.
Yeah, the Axe.
The Axe, who was part of his breakout tag team in the AWA when Harley Race was the young guy in the 1960s. A team with Larry the Axe Hennig. And they faced Bruiser and Crusher, and Crusher called them the Dolly Sisters, came out and made fun of them and all that. But Harley was the spot monkey. He was the daredevil of the crew, and great tag team, very well remembered. and just worked and was smart. Worked for the top promoters all the time. Worked for I'm sure Giant Bob. Worked for Sam Mushnick. Worked for Vince McMahon.
He was really
for the Rockets.
A lot of time in the St. Louis area, right? That was probably his home base.
Well, St. Louis was the Cadillac, was the Cartier, I guess is a better way of saying it, of wrestling promotions. It was one city run by a former sports writer who was never a wrestler by the name of Sam Mushnick, and he ran his business so above board that wrestling was different, had a different reputation in St. Louis, had a better reputation in St. Louis, and he was the NWA president too, and took care of a lot of the negotiated a lot of the settlements between the different promoters, and would bring in the best to his city for main events on Friday night. I knew, you knew here that Ric Flair was going to go someplace because he was spending Friday nights in St. Louis main events, and Harley Race was a big part of that. Johnny Valentine was a big part of that. Lou Thesz was a big part of that, and that was the place. If you made it there, you'd make it anywhere. And Harley Race also defended the NWA title against Bob Backlund in Madison Square Garden. Remembered as the king of professional wrestling in the WWF when they changed how wrestling was marketed back in the 1980s, and he had a nice run with them too. So Harley Race.
Did he work for Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. both?
He worked for Vince Sr. On specific dates, and then went in with Vince Jr. and fought hard against Vince Jr. until he went there. He was an owner and booker in Kansas City promotion, and if you were a great wrestler that day, you went up against Harley Race sooner or later. Famous for going into a locker room and a WWF locker room that he wasn't part of the show, and facing down Hulk Hogan, whether it was with a gun or not. I mean, it was just, he took that business very seriously, and it was like the mafia. If you were impinging on NWA territory and he was around, he might do something about it.
I heard he liked to drive fast. I heard a story about one time he was going to leave Chicago, go out toward North Dakota, and everybody else leaving about 10:30 in the morning. He said, I will leave at 2:30. His buddy said, I will leave at 2:30. Yeah. So he waited until 2:30. They left. As soon as they get out in the country, somewhere on the road, going 80 miles per hour. They kept flying through the country, driving as fast as they did. Everywhere they go. When they got inside the city, the city speed of 35 miles per hour, they slowed down. Back on the main road, 80 miles an hour. They got out there, a guy out in the country somewhere, he had a little light on his car, pulled him over, said, I'm taking you down, follow me downtown, we're going down to Wardentown, take me downtown. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, you're driving 8 miles an hour, you're driving the speed limit. Harley Race said, who are you? He said, it was a citizen's arrest. You remember this was the Andy Griffith show?
Yes.
And Harley and his buddy, they're with him, they stood over, and Harley said to his buddy, well, get in the car. He goes, why? He goes, just get in the car. Harley hit the guy, knocked him in the ditch, knocked him out, and they took off 80 miles per hour back down the road.
I believe every word.
80 miles per hour.
Those kinds of incidents, were legendary with Harley Race. I mean, his career started. He was in a terrible car accident, and his wife died, and they lost a baby that she was pregnant with. I mean, he must have been 18 years old, and it took a year and a half for him to get back into the ring. Was told he was never going to wrestle again. Was told that they had to amputate his leg, and Gus Karras, the famous, the big Kansas City promoter, told the doctors, over my dead body, and kept him going. But Harley Race, Terry Funk, the famous NWA champion, member of the Funk family, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and a guy who wrestled and won and lost to Harley Race dozens and dozens and hundreds of times, said that Harley Race was the fastest driver, drank the most beers, threw the best right cross, and then he was a professional wrestler. And that definitely.
How old was he when he died? 76?
76 years old.
Yeah.
He had been I'd say 9 months ago, he was up at WrestleCade. I saw him there.
That was over in Winston?
Winston-Salem. Yeah.
Was he in a wheelchair then, or able to walk?
Yeah, he was in a wheelchair. He had died of lung cancer. He had he was a lifelong smoker. Had a tough go of the last several years, but a tough man, and he got through that too.
He got along pretty good with Triple H. Didn't Triple H reach out to him?
Very much so.
Reached out to Harley?
Race knew that Race always worked for the top promotions, and knew that once that the WWE had the lion's share of the marketplace, always kept always kept his relationships with them, really good. The wrestlers would go when they were around where he lived in St. Louis, Kansas City. They would go to barbecues at his house if they were there, and they had big barbecues. And he would, of course, he worked a lot of Legends things for wrestling, and had his own. He was very proud to be a trainer, had his own school for many years, including there's a wrestler there named Leland Race, who's actually a wrestler, not really the son of Harley Race, and he's from here, and he ran the school for several years and took over kind of took that race name for himself. Harley, he was, but he would say the best wrestler he'd ever seen was Triple H, which was a smart political thing to say.
Sure.
And also, if you watch Triple H, he had that slow-paced style that I always think of Greg Valentine and Johnny Valentine, but it was also a Harley Race thing. And I always say this. Sometimes I think the only person that ever says this, but Harley Race is one of those wrestlers, as tough as he looked and as well-paced and smart as he wrestled when he was at his peak, at his best. I always think the word graceful. Very, everything had a meaning to it. Everything had a place to it, and just a graceful dancer.
I think Jim Ross told one of his matches with Terry Funk. I think he called it was Dory Funk Jr. He called Dory Funk Jr. and Harley Race matches. It was one of the first matches that Jim Ross, the championship match, he refereed.
Yeah, I definitely, and probably an hour.
It was. And what do they call those hour matches again?
Oh, he did
Broadways.
Broadways.
What's again?
They call Broadways.
Broadways. There you go. Yeah, the
Broadway play. You're going to go through the
long match.
Thing, long match. So it goes, and of course, Harley beat Terry Funk for the NWA title in Toronto, and had many matches with Dory Funk Jr. and beat Dory Funk Jr. for the NWA title in Houston, Texas. Part of the controversy between the two major rivals in wrestling at the time, Dory Funk Jr., the NWA champion, and Jack Briscoe, the heir apparent. And there's a lot of back and forth, and Harley Race made his career by stepping in and being that transition champion. So
yeah, Jim Ross said the fun part of the match was probably going over the match before the match even occurred. They get together in the locker room and go over everything and make sure all the names and the moves and things were straight, and then go back out and get it done. And Jim Ross said it went to perfection.
Yes, it was just the job of the NWA champion was to have that travel, and Ric Flair talked about the guy that he based his championship on was Harley Race. To have that travel and deal with that, just that alone was bad enough. And then going into different territories and different main events and wrestling different styles with wrestlers who could be the top wrestlers in the world as far as in the ring, and could be the biggest and would be the biggest draws in the world. And maybe they needed to be carried through matches, but always make sure to go an hour, to have this epic match that the NWA champion Harley Race would look good in, but his challenger might look like the real world champion.
Would a match like that work today?
Yes.
You can still pull off an hour match today, probably, if you tell the right story.
Right story. And there's.
Who would you, if you had to choose a couple of wrestlers to put in an hour long, one of those Broadway matches, who would you choose today to see in a match like that? And a match that would also draw the interest of younger fans as well.
I'd like John Moxley and Kenny Omega. I think that there are hour-long matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Otani and Okada and Tanahashi when he gets better, and Switchblade Jay White, and there are guys. The wrestlers have the athletic ability and the stamina and the knowledge of the in-ring now better than they've ever had. It's the having that character and cutting that promo that they need to work on. I thought Harley Race always cut great promos. I always enjoyed him. And when he passed, I spent my share of time looking at old promos of Harley Race. So,
good YouTube stuff right there.
Very much so. Yeah. It's amazing the resources we have at our fingertips now to visit history.
So we talk about Harley Race. We'll talk a little bit about some other things as well. That's before we go to our first break, let's quickly touch on not very quickly, but a little bit of point of back one to the SummerSlam in Toronto. Bill Goldberg and Dolph Ziggler. What about that match? Did it work?
I thought so. I thought it worked tremendously. I got a big kick out of it because it seemed to me it worked on the level of, legend coming back and beating the big loudmouth young guy, and it worked on the level of limited superstar, older and limited when he was younger, and the carpenter building a castle for him to live in and make him look good. And I love Dolph Ziggler talking back to him the whole time about, you speared me twice, getting speared again. It was almost as if for the people that were objecting to Bill Goldberg coming back, because he doesn't in the ring have that savoir-faire, I guess, that this generation of wrestlers has.
Best spear in the business, though, without a doubt, best spear.
But yeah, and boy, Dolph Ziggler sold the hell out of that spear. But I thought it was a real answer to, that there are guys with charisma and they know their act and they can do it. And he did it with Goldberg. Goldberg carried him through WrestleMania about a year and a half ago, and then the WrestleMania season, and he, Dolph Ziggler did a good job with him, and it was something I'd like to see Bill Goldberg go ahead and retire back again, but I thought they did a match that even commented on, why is this guy here, and they had the salesman say that and then complain, and then show you why he was there.
Do you think it did its job of trying to cover over the match where they had the weakness between he and the Undertaker in Saudi Arabia? That was just looked upon as a bad match, but this match pulled things back together for Bill Goldberg.
I think so. I think that Bill Goldberg now can retire again and not worry about that.
I think he's got one more match coming up. I think one more match: Bill Goldberg versus Jack Swagger. What about Jack?
I think Bill Goldberg has one more match to go, and I think Jack Swagger's going to do something in MMA and maybe come back to wrestling someday. And I don't think those two will meet in the ring. Matthew.
Jack had a lot to say to that match.
Yeah, he did. He was wrong, but it's because wrestling is a performance, and so wrestling is about wrestlers working together to make the most money possible, and Bill Goldberg was a moneymaker. There was a formula to it, but we all liked Popeye the Sailor Man when we were growing up. You watched those cartoons, and you knew exactly what was going to happen.
That spinach really worked.
If you get that spinach, and he always did, then he was going to kick some ass. So nothing wrong with a simple formula.
And the formula worked then from your standpoint.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it was a good special attraction. Didn't last too long.
You're a teacher. Let's even go a step further. We'll close out and take a break. If you had to give a grade for that match, what grade would you give that match, Bill Goldberg and Dolph Ziggler? How would you grade it?
I give it a B, but I give Dolph Ziggler an A.
He did a good job carrying Bill Goldberg.
And Bill Goldberg, for a guy that's at the age that he's at and the experience level of the last 17, 18 years that he's had, which is not very much, and all that, he was fine. He did what he should have done. I think the problem with one of the problems with Saudi Arabia was it was much too ambitious a match. It was Sunday night was a 6 or 7 minute Bill Goldberg match, and I thought that helped things enormously, and it also helped that Ziggler was out there talking that trash before it and after it and all that.
He really sold it, like you say. He sold it well.
Yeah, and they got on. It counts to get on SportsCenter. They got.
Oh, you love that.
Dolph got Goldberg.
Do you think we've seen the last Bill Goldberg? Is that his last match, or you expect another one?
I would say as a special attraction when they feel like the time is right. And right now WWE is trying everything they can, so they brought out Bill Goldberg, I think, a little faster than maybe they would have. That I wouldn't think it's his last match, but I think it's his last couple of matches.
Getting closer to the end then.
Oh yeah, we're at the end. It's just a matter of can they think of a way to use him, and does he want to do it, and is he physically up for it? Because monetarily he's up for it.
He's got enough money now, I would think.
Yeah, they pay him enough money too. So.
Yeah. We'll take a break with Bruce Mitchell. Back with more on Pro Wrestling Torches. Bruce Mitchell at GreensboroSports.com. After this, take a break.